plane, along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here, and you just answering questions because you're a stupid person.
Are you committing to releasing the full video?
Did I just tell you that?
You said that it was up to the secretary.
Obnoxious reporter in the whole office. I just tell you, you are an obnoxious, actually a terrible reporter, and it's always the same thing with you. I told you, whatever Pete Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
Okay, that's different, but in total that was a look at President Trump lashing out at reporters who press him on topics that are inconvenient for him. Yesterday, it was releasing the complete video of the deadly strike on survivors of a boat attack. We're going to dig into the president now delegating that decision to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Also ahead, Paramount is upping the ante in a bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery as President Trump is again indicating that he will be involved in any deal. Meanwhile, the president is set to hold a rally today for the first time in 5 months. He's expected to workshop a new message on affordability, despite repeatedly calling it a Democrat hoax. It comes as he is working on a bailout for American farmers who've been hurt by his tariffs. We'll go through all of that. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Tuesday, December 9th. Along with Willie and me, we have the co-host of our 9 a.m. hour, staff writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, co-founder and editor-in-chief of Semaphore, Ben Smith, and CEO and co-founder of Axios, Jim Vandehei. Willie, we have a lot going on this morning, and that was quite a roundup of the president bashing reporters and speaking them into a way that if our kids spoke to someone that way, we probably would ground them.
Yeah, and as you point out, it's always on a topic where he doesn't have a good answer,
right.
So attack the source instead.
Or maybe it's become distracting to the topic.
Right. We're going to dig into that in a moment, but Ben, we got to ask you first, real quick here before we get into the details. Paramount, David Ellison now launching a hostile bid to get Warner Brothers Discovery, going right to the shareholders on this. How do you see this playing out?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's not that hostile to offer somebody $108 billion.
That seems like
kind of friendly.
It's a little bit friendly, and I'm not sure David Zaslav isn't miserable that he's managed to cause a bidding war for his company. But I mean, they were, as David Ellison was on Squawk yesterday saying, look, this is outrageous. I started this bidding war. How could I lose it, essentially? Right. And I think the answer is if he does, it will be seen as this incredible kind of overreach, essentially arrogance in assuming that, because they directed money toward the president because they felt like they were in with Trump, that he was going to do them this favor. And in a way, somebody who in Washington is very upset about this deal said to me, it's as though the Ellisons took the worst stereotypes of the Trump administration as being totally corrupt and transactional, assumed they were true, acted on them in public. And that, I do think, rubs some people in the Trump administration the wrong way, whatever you think of them.
An interesting element of this, too, is that Jared Kushner, his group, is involved in this deal as well, which could bring the president into it.
And a lot of money. Okay, well, we're going to have much more on that ahead. And Jimmy Kimmel, seems like that whole kerfuffle has actually made him bigger, getting signed for another year when there is one point talk that maybe he might step down. So all of that coming up. But first, less than 1 week after President Trump said he would have no problem releasing the video of that deadly restrike on a boat in the Caribbean, he's now placing the decision in the hands of his defense secretary. Many members of Congress are pushing for the release of the full, unedited video of the attack and surrounding communications, information on that, when the U.S. military launched a follow-up missile strike after seeing 2 survivors of the first blast still clinging to wreckage in the water. Here's what the president said about releasing that video last Wednesday, followed up by his new comments from yesterday.
You released video of that first boat strike on September 2nd, but not the second video. Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what happened?
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem.
Mr. President, you said you would have no problem with releasing the full video of that strike on September 2nd off the coast of Venezuela. Secretary Hegseth now says...
You said that. I didn't say that. This is ABC fake news.
You said that you would have no problem releasing the full bit. Okay, well, Secretary Hegseth...
Whatever Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
He now says it's under review. Are you ordering the secretary to release that full video?
Whatever he decides is okay with me. So every boat we knock out of the water, every boat, we save 25,000 American lives. That was a boat loaded up with drugs. I saw the video. They were trying to turn the boat back to where it could float. And we didn't want to see that because that boat was loaded up with drugs just like everything else.
So obviously, I mean, there's the tape. A week ago, he said one thing. He claims now yesterday that it's fake news that he said the thing we just saw him say on tape. Again, it just gets at what we pointed out at the top of the show. He's floundering on this. The Pentagon is floundering on this question. They're getting criticism still from some Republican members of Congress. There's talk of withholding funds for Pete Hegseth's travel until they see this video, the second video of the second strike on the boat. Where is the White House landing here in terms of an answer and a response? Because it's been a tough couple of weeks.
Yeah, flailing's the right way to put it. First of all, we have Democrats, the handful who have seen the video say, including Congressman Himes, we talked about this yesterday, say it's one of the most disturbing things he's ever seen as an American. Just we have people have described it to us as these two men on the boat for 40 minutes, and then before that second missile comes in and kills them. They were clearly no threat to anyone. But we are seeing some Republicans push back as well. Now, like the Chairman Senator Wicker, we haven't heard from him yet. So that's a big voice that needs to wade in here. But others have said, look, we need to see this video. If it's exonerating, great, let's see it. But if it's not, then we have more questions about the legality of this strike and potentially others. As you say, Willie, they're putting at least a little bit of teeth into this by suggesting they might withhold some funding. But in terms of inside the West Wing, they recognize the story they can't get their arms around right now. It seems to be spiraling by the day. And for Secretary Hegseth, he's received votes of confidence from the president. He gave them another one yesterday. But there are plenty in that building who say, look, he's already lost the Pentagon. We've seen him, be reduced to a lot of sort of attacks on woke rather than being at the front lines of negotiations with Ukraine, let's say. And that his job security, though he's not in imminent danger, there are people around him who say, look, the president is tiring of this distraction.
Okay, and then Jim Vandehei questioning of the administration's tactics with these boat strikes is coming from perhaps an unlikely source. He's been yelling at reporters, but I think this is one that he likes a lot. Unlikely source. Longtime Trump supporter and far-right political activist Laura Loomer. She was recently granted press credentials to cover the Pentagon. And in a post to social media yesterday, Loomer questioned the focus on attacking boats from Venezuela, writing in part, given that 90% of the drugs coming into the U.S. that are killing Americans are coming from Mexico, when can we expect to see airstrikes on the Mexican cartels in Mexico? Loomer continued, writing, I support killing narco-terrorists. I'm simply wondering when the U.S. government is going to carry out airstrikes on Mexican cartels who are responsible for 92% of the flow of drugs into our country. She added 8% of the drug supply into the U.S. comes from Venezuela, and it's not fentanyl. So when you've lost Laura Loomer, Jim Vandehei, that's my first question. And my second one is, I think it's fair to say that it's also a big question to back up a little bit and talk about these strikes overall and whether or not they are lawful. And again, I'm waiting to hear from Roger Wicker on that.
Yeah, I'm skeptical until proven otherwise that Republicans are really going to stand up to Trump and really force his hand on this if he doesn't want to release the video. I think the fact that you have Laura Loomer criticizing it, I think it speaks to pretty widespread concern with how they've handled the whole topic. I also think it speaks to a broader topic that we've touched on before, which is this meltdown inside of MAGA, where you have you take the 10 most powerful people, all of whom could be massive assets to the president, and they spend almost every day infighting with each other in these awful allegations. And if you watch any of the MAGA media over the weekend, just terrible, gross kind of accusations against each other about their sexuality and their commitment to America, what Tucker Carlson is doing, whether or not he's going to buy a place in the Middle East. And that was the base of the party. That was the power of the party. And when you start to see those members of MAGA turn on each other and then turn on the president, it just takes away one of his weapons in terms of getting Republicans to fall in line. But
A divided house will not stand. And I don't agree with what Morning Joe's talk host said a while ago pertaining to looking at how dangerous or how sick or how unhumane can it be towards attacking a boat that don't have crucial evidence of them being a danger. And my question was, well, how sick or how cold-hearted or how cruel is it towards what that they have been doing to us all these years? I don't know if what the president's doing is legal or not. I just know this, that other presidents, including Obama, done these type of events, and we really virtually never heard nothing out of it.
Questions about the mission writ large and what impact it's actually having on drug trafficking into the United States. He was also sued by one of the victims of these strikes, by the family who said that this man wasn't a drug trafficker but a fisherman. He was sued by the New York Times for restricting reporters from covering the Pentagon. So he's faced a number of questions around his leadership, and they've all been sort of rooted in questions about his judgment. And so, as Jonathan points out, there isn't indications that he is in imminent danger, but you are seeing a lot of questions about his ability to conduct the job. And within the Pentagon, it's leading to, in some cases, resignations from people who are fearful that they will be in the position that Admiral Bradley was in, where they carry out an order and have to then carry the burden of that decision in a political climate and a command climate that the Secretary himself created.
And Nancy, let's talk a little further about the strikes themselves. Even in the midst of this furor around the September 2nd strike, Secretary Hegseth authorized another a couple of days ago. There's still sort of an open question as to if the U.S. will expand its operations, perhaps with ground strikes. The president keeps hinting that that could come in days ahead as they try to pressure Maduro out. What's the latest you're hearing in terms of what, there's so much U.S. military assets in the region. What could be next?
I'm glad you mentioned that video, because up until that point, there have been 21 previous strikes. Either the president or the Secretary of Defense released those videos. That last video was released by U.S. Southern Command, which I think speaks to some effort to sort of distance themselves from the release of those videos. So what we've seen now is a massive military buildup in that region. More ships there since the Cuban Missile Crisis, upwards of 15,000 troops total. And this second double tap strike has really opened the aperture on a wider conversation about what the U.S. military intends to do in Venezuela. Remember that these missions have not had congressional authorization, and even before the questions around the September 2nd strike, there had been frustrations on both sides of the aisle about this mission. What is it hoping to achieve? How do striking these boats really stop the flow of drugs into the United States when the most deadly drug, fentanyl, is not coming through these waters or on these ships? And whether these strikes are actually leading into possible regime change. If so, what does the U.S. hope to achieve? And what does the day after look like, even if the United States achieves its goal of potentially the fall of the Maduro regime? And so right now, the military presence remains there, but at the Pentagon, there seems to be a sense that as there are questions about these September strikes, the initial ones, that it is harder to have a bigger conversation about whether this mission can be escalated into potential ground operations into Venezuela.
Staff writer at The Atlantic, Nancy Youssef, thank you very much. And of course, we remember the video that the Democrats put out that told members of the military, just reminding them of their oath and that they don't have to follow and they should not follow illegal orders. And we've shown you a lot on this show. Pete Hegseth himself saying that and believing that, apparently. But here is more of that. Some more examples of Pete Hegseth talking about what troops should do. This is from back in 2016.
Military leaders saying you cannot possibly kill the families of would-be terrorists, and they would not follow the order. And his answer, Donald Trump's answer on what if the generals won't listen to you when you say take out the families? Oh, they'll listen. That's really not the answer.
No, I got some response from vets on that saying you're not just going to follow that order if it's unlawful.
The military's not even going to follow his orders.
The military's not going to follow illegal orders. And so the Trump campaign was forced to change their position and say, we're going to try to change the law so that the military can operate within the law. That's a tall order also. also. But then when pressed on it, he's an armchair tough guy. I hate to say it, but this is a guy who said that John McCain is not a war hero, yet he sought his own 5 military deferments. But he goes way too far, and then when the military says, we won't follow illegal orders like torture or killing families, which is not loosening the rules of engagement, he suddenly realizes, wait, I might actually be commander-in-chief. And the problem here is that voters don't know whether you get the bluster Trump, or you, which is the armchair tough guy, or you get the one who walks it back on a statement now and says, no, I'll follow the law. Here's the problem with Trump. He says, go ahead and kill the families. Go ahead and torture. Go ahead and go further than waterboarding. What happens when people follow those orders or don't follow them? It's not clear that Donald Trump will have their back. Donald Trump is oftentimes about Donald Trump.
Wow, that's him literally talking about Donald Trump. I know he said it so many times, but just to put some quotes around it, Pete Hegseth on Donald Trump, he won't follow illegal orders, and that's bad.
Armchair tough guy.
Armchair tough guy.
So think about when that was, Ben. That was March of 2016. All those clips we just saw there. That's Pete Hegseth, who then and now actually.
And from 2016 to now is almost 10 years. People's opinions change. There's no doubt that Donald Trump is a mob-type boss, okay? He's a mob-type president. And there's no doubt the people obviously must have thought that we needed something like that, because if they didn't, they never would have put him in power to begin with, towards it basically being a landslide. Now, whenever it comes to illegal versus legal, pertaining to what our United States federal military troops does, that's up to the federal people. They're the ones in charge. And if they tell you to do something because they see a potential threat based around our law and order and safety, well then it would be irresponsible in not obeying that order. I think what a lot of people don't realize, that during World War II, and I've made mention of this before, my dad used to tell, he didn't talk about it a lot, but whenever he did talk about it, you could darn well believe in understanding what he was talking about towards the seriousness of it. That if you got captured by the enemy and they was torturing you towards trying to get information from you, in, let's say they wanted to know where a boat was that maybe had 100 men on it or 200 men or whatever, that by and large, whenever you make a commitment, a pledge of allegiance, you're making a commitment to the party in response to the needs of the many always outweigh the needs of the few, even at the expense of you having to sacrifice your life for, because if you was to give out that information, now you put at risk the 100 or 200 men that's in the area where they're wanting to torture you to get the information out of. There's something wrong with our ideology over here in America whenever it comes to us protecting ourselves and doing that in which what is ethically, morally right versus legally right, because you're dealing with a different set of rules and regulations whenever you're talking about maritime laws, international laws versus American laws versus all these other countries' laws. You're talking about multiple different scenarios that, if you don't look at this stuff within a fine line, in the aspect of trying to split hairs, you'll wind up getting caught up into a gross scenario to the degree that now all of a sudden you're the bad guy, and instead of you being the victim, they are. We have seen the work of the devil do the very exact same thing right here in America pertaining to our laws, pertaining to basically giving the person that's committing the crimes, giving them the authority or as much right as to do the victims that they're committing the crime on. That's crazy. That's absolutely insane.
Stopping the flow of drugs, it makes no sense at all because that's not where most of the bad drugs that are full of fentanyl are actually coming from. So that discordant explanation of it is why Republicans are troubled. With all that said, I'm still skeptical that they're going to do anything about it.
Well, the generals we've had on the show say if this is a war, we're talking about war crimes, which is a whole new level. Still ahead on Morning Joe, President Trump's former personal lawyer, Alina Habba, is stepping down as New Jersey's top federal prosecutor. We're going to take a look at several U.S. attorneys, including Habba.
See, I mean, it's just a constant conflict between one and another towards them now fighting amongst themselves. They've gone to fighting amongst themselves. And whenever you have a house that's doing that, the Bible says very clearly that a house divided against itself will not stand, or two people that's unequally yoked will not stand. And I tend to wonder that that's one of the primary reasons why that nobody wanted to support or back up the Jubilees Jesus Christ Windmill Ministries missions, is because there was a conflict of interest there in me preaching the whole Bible and not just bits and pieces of the Bible. Now, there's no doubt you can just about find any religion in the world, not just here in America, but in the world, to where you'll find a little bit of truth that's correspondence with the King James. But that's how they pull their followers in, is that they try to prove, hey, this is legitimate in the way that we believe and why that we believe and what that we believe.
Turning point action.
And I read in your book that in Charlie's book, when he said, at first, when Dennis Prager, I guess, played a big role in that.
Dennis did.
What an unbelievably bright individual. Great
Dennis
guy.
is precious.
And he said, you got to do this. And he thought, how can I do this? What the president calls. He's running Turning Point Action, Turning Point. I got to set up this college tour. If I shut off my phone, how many things wouldn't get done? And then when he shut it down and put it on, there was only 2 messages.
But if you think about it, people,
and it's true, though.
you're almost like training the people around you to say, hey, this is how life used to be. You left the office at 5. No one could reach you.
Yes.
And you had a beeper, but no one could reach you until the next morning. But it's retraining the world. You used to have blue laws. It's retraining the world to say, okay, at 5 o'clock, unless it's an emergency, give me a phone call. I'm not going to respond to your text message. I'm with my babies. I'm putting the kids to bed. I'm spending time with my husband. I'm fixing the generational gap because I want to be able to show them rest and importance. Your priority, not my office.
Erica, Charlie and I, we're from the same generation of Young Conservative, you as well. And there's a list of people that are there in the movement waiting for who's going to be the next leader of the movement, who's going to get these young. Do you feel like these were the words that were almost prophetic in the sense of he left these as like a guide for the movement?
100%. Lawrence, you're absolutely right. And you know it too. You can have all the political stances that you want. You can be able to make...
By the way, to my viewers, that's Charlie's wife right there.
You want. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we're human.
Right.
We are so fragile and we are human. We are not machines. So if you think that you're going to just be so productive and so busy because you're getting your to-do list done, what are you actually doing? No, you're just one of 1,000 in a million. If you really want to be used in a way that is so profound to change this world, you have to press pause and you have to be able to listen to the Lord, listen from the Lord, be able to have people around you that will pour into you, that will mentor you, that will love on you, and say, you know what? This world that's so noisy right now, go ahead and keep talking. I'm taking a pause because I need to know who I need to be as a leader in order to lead. I can't just keep following down this path and expect to be able to make a difference with the youth.
Eric, I cannot imagine what you're going through. You found the love of your life, and that's the goal for all of us, right?
I know.
You did, and he was taken so early. What do you miss most? How are his parents doing? Because his parents are private. We saw them for the first time at the funeral.
Yes.
You did such a beautiful job there. How are all of y'all doing? You talk a little bit about the kids, but how's your mom doing? I mean, I know she's devastated for you.
My mom is, Charlie and my mom, well, Charlie's family's there. Everyone's hanging in there. We're doing the best to be expected.
my mom and Charlie, they were best friends. I would always say that Charlie was her favorite child. But the thing that was so special about our Sabbath dinners was that it wasn't about religious protocol. It was literally going to my mom's house. My mom's battling a very rare illness. It was literally going to my mom's house for dinner with my mom. It was, again, bridging that generational gap where my kids don't have phones, they're not looking at iPads, they're not looking at screens. We're sitting together and we're talking and we're loving on each other. How was your week? What were your wins? What are you grateful for? We're going around the table and talking about that. And that was what was so special about our Friday nights. And Charlie was like, we have our Friday nights.
And that's the same as I used to tell my son, that worshiping God should not be done out of formalities. Go to church, listen to the priest or listen to the minister, stand up, sit down, sing this song, recite this prayer, stand up, sit down, kneel again. Those are all formalities. God, it was Christ that said to clean the cup from the inside, and the outside would basically take care of itself. Kind of like my grandpa used to tell us boys whenever we was loading up the wagon towards shelling corn and putting it in the wagon, we'd try to fill up the back of the wagon before we went to the front of the wagon. That way we could go home. And Grandpa used to always tell us, boys, don't worry about the back end of the wagon. Fill the front end of the wagon. The back end will take care of itself. And it will. It will.
His bags, Daddy's home, take his phone Friday night, Shabbat Shalom, throw it in the junk drawer, and it was just all us. And that's what I always wanted to make so special for him, was coming home. I'd always say, baby, I don't care what time you get home. Home is here for you. Your food will never be cold. It might sit out for a little bit, but I'll reheat it. It's fine. And I just want to encourage spouses, don't get mad. It's so easy. Don't do it.
Here's an excerpt from the forward in your book. You write this: I knew Charlie so deeply in a way no one could. That is why I can say with certainty these pages are not theory for him. They are testimony. The words you hold in your hands were the convictions he lived by, that were written on his heart. Looking back now, I see the book as one of Charlie's most enduring gifts to the world. He did not know how brief his time on earth would be. None of us did. But the truths written in this book are not bound by time. They will outlive us all, as will the legacy of his faith. And in the book, he goes into details about the Bible.
Yes, he does. He does. It's really powerful. He became a subject matter expert, if you will. We have 50 plus books on our bookshelf about the Sabbath, and he spent a lot of time talking to Dennis Prager about this. He learned as much as he could, and again, he implemented it in his life because he knew that it was something that would, communication is everything. And so when he was on campus, he knew talking to people was very important, especially the youth. We don't communicate with each other anymore. So something as simple as talking goes viral because no one talks. The miscommunication is out of control. And so he was so good at communicating and understanding and bridging that gap. And for him, this book was one of those moments where, okay, if you have communication mixed in with people, turning off the noise and the chatter and actually resetting and rehumanizing, putting those together is a beautiful symphony of how this country can heal. And he knew that, and that's why he wanted to share it with everybody.
Eric, I want to show you a moment because you were just talking about your kids.
Yes.
And the last Kirk to sit there was actually Charlie Kirk when he came to fill in. Here's this beautiful moment of your daughter running in to see her father.
Oh,
Let's play
after
it.
the show, right? Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that?
I'm just glad that I know she's young, but she's so smart, and I'm so glad that she had that moment. She would always listen to his speeches. I always had his show playing. I laugh when people are like, "Did your kids watch TV?" I was like, "Well, yeah, they watch either Daddy's show or they're watching Bob Ross because he has a very nap-inducing voice."
Yeah.
But it was special. It was so special.
I mean, he hosted 8 hours that weekend, so it's a 4-hour show.
I love that video of her. I know.
Love her little pictures.
I know. I know, it's so
And that
sweet.
story, that's where y'all met, Erica.
He
Did you know
loved our
you were going to
baby
marry
so
him
much.
in that moment? Because he said, I don't want you to work for me.
No, I want to date you. No, I fell in love with him so quickly because he was so direct. The Lord knew I needed a man that was not going to mess around, that was not going to say, let's see where it goes, let's go get coffee, let's go get drinks. We never drank. It was like one of those things where it was like, no, I want to date you. I want to marry you. I'm pursuing you intentionally. And that's what's so important for a lot of young people today that are looking for their spouses. Don't waste your time. The right person will literally say, I know that this is something special. Let's honor the Lord. Let's do this right. I'm not going to treat my boyfriend like my fiance and my fiance like my husband. Like, we're going to do this the right way. And that's what we did. And we just wanted our relationship to always honor and glorify the Lord.
You know, Erica, can you walk us through? It's something that Ainsley, Brian have talked about forgiveness, right?
Yes.
And it's, for us, on a
That
personal
moment at the
level,
funeral.
we can't forgive people for less. But you had so much. How did you get to that point where you could forgive on a national stage?
Like I told Andrew, that was something that was a game time decision. I'm not going to just say, words are so powerful. I mean, God created the world with words. Words are very, very powerful. And to me, I'm never going to say something I don't mean. Charlie was the same exact way. He would tell you just how it is. And it's, again, faith is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And I am not going to let the enemy have a foothold in my life. How am I supposed to be the mother I need to be? How am I supposed to be the leader of Turning Point USA, Turning Point Action, the youth, when I myself have a deep, unrooted, horrible, nasty hate in my heart? I cannot operate with hate in my heart. No one can. No one can be fruitful with hate in your heart. And that does not mean we're weak.
Right.
That does not mean we're weak. That does not mean we.
Actually, what it means is that Satan is trying to come at a person in any form and fashion to the degree that if you know that Satan working through a person or working through a situation basically cause that harm and hurt. If Satan can create that energy of hate through the person that got victimized, now all of a sudden that hampers that person of having a true relationship with God. Kind of like what she was talking about earlier, as far as these young children not communicating with one another. As far as I'm concerned, not communicating with one another is part of the strategy that it says in the Bible that Satan is the author of confusion. It creates confusion by not cooperating with one another, not talking to one another, not being able to work out things. And that in and of itself is the devil's power or the devil's wedge that tries to separate us from becoming united versus divided.
It's evil and darkness, and it starts with one little inch that just keeps growing and growing and growing. And you have a choice in life. And again, Charlie was trying to save the exact man that murdered him by trying to reach that generation and say, there is a different way to live. There is a way better and healthier and pure and beautiful, truthful way to live. Why are you wasting your time with brain rot? Why are you wasting your time with things you know are so unhealthy, so unproductive, so divisive, so evil, when there's so many other things you can be focusing on that you can...
It's actually a form of abuse whenever a person is going over the guidelines, and this includes myself, that you're actually abusing yourself or you're neglecting yourself. You're not staying in accordance to what God intended for that person or persons to be doing.
A direction that we never thought could be possible, because the Lord can use that. If you just let that little seed in your life go towards hate and evil, we're on a totally different path.
Yeah, you know, we're watching you go through all of this, and I want you to know there are always going to be the naysayers. They're going to be the people that might question this or that.
Monday
about
morning
that
quarterback.
day, and we know some of those headlines, but it's always bigger in your head. Someone told me that when I got into this business. It's always bigger in your head than it is to the rest, because most of the people aren't following the headlines or like you are or like we are. And when I got in the business, people would write, not to make it about me, I'm just trying to say this to help you. They would write the most negative things, and I would just be so upset about it.
It's hurtful.
I'm like, this trying to be this good Christian girl, trying. I make mistakes every day. I sin.
We all do.
But I'm reading these negative things, and it really, really bothered me, especially the personal ones when I'm going through the deepest things. Yeah. But then I realized they don't know me. Even the ones who love us, bless their hearts, they don't really know us either. So the people who really matter are God, our family, the people who do know us. And that's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
So all the negative press, I think Charlie's right. I think Charlie's teaching you this week.
I know. Just saying stop. You don't have to respond to every single thing.
Yes.
I mean, it is nasty out there.
Because they're 5% of the people that might not like Charlie's message. The rest of the country, they might not always agree, but they're proud of him for standing up. They're heartbroken for you and your family. That's normal. That's what a human being does.
Yeah, you're right.
Erica, can you talk about the next phase of Turning Point? Because Charlie focused on young men. There's a crisis going on in the country when it comes to young men. Abandoned men weren't taking their places in the household. And now you're focused on young women.
Correct.
How's that task been? You've always been a writer. You've always had things to say, but you kind of focus on the family for a long time. People that knew you, we knew that you had all these thoughts. But how has the leadership role been for you now?
It's powerful because there was no daylight between Charlie and I, so I witnessed everything firsthand, front row seat. Charlie did have a phenomenal way of communicating with the young men of Gen Z and millennials, actually, honestly, every generation, to be quite frank. I have noticed that there's been an uptick in the women's interest in Turning Point USA and Turning Point Action, to be expected. But, again, I view it as a holistic thing. You can't just focus on the female and you can't just focus on the male. There is a beautiful balance of having the two turn into one of, you're an American. You're an American.
That's right.
And so for me, something so important that we are going to continue to do is civil discourse, debate, dialogue. So important. If you cancel people and you say, you can't say that,
right?
Why can't I say that? Tell me more. You have to counter bad ideas with good ideas. You have to have that debate and dialogue. And I can't have, what I do not want to have happen is someone say, well, I'm afraid to talk to that person because X, Y, Z, and I don't want them to be platformed. It has nothing. If we don't communicate and combat each other in a very civil discourse way of discourse, dialogue, that is where we get in trouble, and that's where this whole side you have to continue that. So that is very important to me. From the female standpoint, it's being able to show them that being a mother is not a weakness. That is a superpower, if anything. When you are a mother, something ignites within you that transforms and transcends you and beyond. That is so important to me. And I have to be honest, being a mother myself, we just came back from our gala this weekend. We had 2 students on stage, precious students. The mother bear inside of me is like, if you want to go after these kids, if you want to go after the youth, you have to go through me. I'm not going to let you touch these kids. On college campus, we just had Governor Abbott in Texas. We have other governors throughout the country that are saying Club America will be on our high school campuses. That is unbelievable.
Right.
Because that means that these kids, male, female, have the opportunity to be exposed to the truth, learn how to debate, learn how to stand for their convictions and what's on their heart, and they're not afraid. And that's what I need, is for these young kids to not be afraid.
And also to buy this book. It's called Stop in the Name of God, Why Honoring the Sabbath Will Transform Your Life, at 45books.com. Certain to be a bestseller. Thanks so much, Erica, for coming down.
Thank you, guys.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being such a good witness.
In about 20 minutes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. More Fox and Friends in just a moment.
One thing I wanted to make a comment on is that being a true born-again Christian, to me, is, let me lay this down just for a second, is to be able to break things down, compartmentalize it, I guess would be the right word, in the aspect of don't hate the person, but you do hate that in which what the person has done. It's kind of like me coming back to Northwest Tennessee and me making reference to the fact of what went on in my younger life around here, that I personally feel like the community, or the community leaders at that time, let the family down because of the abusiveness behavior that was going on openly, that the Whites knew about, the Stones knew about, the Morgans knew about, the Coopers knew about, the Willises knew about, the Bakers knew about, the Thompsons knew about, the Cobles knew about. What you? And I could go on and on and on about how that I feel like the community leaders let us down because they didn't stand up to that in which what they know was improper. Today, I come back to the same area and I make reference to that, not in the aspect that I hate the Whites, not in the aspect that I hate the Bakers or the Willises or the Thompsons or the Coopers or any of the above, but in response towards I hated what had went on, that they let my family down. Learning to compartmentalize it and separating it between hating what the person has done versus hating the person, I think means everything in the world. And she made reference to the fact of pertaining to women, females, holding a role. Well, I'd made a mistake out here that God brought it to my attention. Right now, I'm in the process of putting up some decorations out here. It's taken me a little longer than what I expected, pertaining to our military. But I've never, for the past 10 years since I've come back here, put any aspect of a female POW, the female soldier. And I know, in one aspect, a soldier is a soldier, and it don't matter if they're male or female. We're supposed to look at them in the sense of being soldiers, right? Well, there is a difference between a male soldier and a female soldier. There's a big difference. And if we don't address the importance of one as much as we do the other, we are showing partiality that is wrong. So this year, I am putting it to the equation of identifying the female soldier, because I hadn't been doing that since I've come back. And I just want to correspond in saying I apologize for that, because in aspect, the female soldiers are just as important as the male soldiers as far as I'm concerned here at the Purple Heart Veteran Dragons Memorial, or Purple Heart Veterans Dragons Memorial site. Like I said, I'm in the process of putting this stuff out here. Jack, come on over here. Come on. Come on, Jack. Jack loves to run out here. But if anybody in the community wants to degrade me because, oh, he put pink out there on his memorial site this year. Yeah, I did. I sure did. Yeah, I put pink out here. You know why? Because women are just as important as a man. Now, I'm not through decorating this. I like just a little bit more, and then I'll be through with it. But I just wanted to give you a brief description and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Using my own creativity. I'm going to do something else with that window right there with Santa being looking through the glass right there. But eventually, and the little Christmas tree in the bike basket. And I put some things over here in honor of our troops. Okay. Jack, get on over here. Failure is not final. It's succeeding. Amen to Jesus Christ. Come on, Jack. Come on. Let's go back in. I ain't dressed for this. Anyways, whenever I get through with all this, I'll light it up and let you look at it. There's some other video content that I'm putting out. In the meantime, I'm about to freeze to death because I'm not dressed appropriately out here, even though he is. He's got his little jacket on. So we're going to end this by saying thank you for being a part of the Jesus Christ Jubilees Windmill Ministries missions here at the Purple Heart Veterans Dragons Memorial Site. Come on, Jack. Come on. God bless our troops, and God bless America. In which way did we go from this moment on in our endeavors? Thanks again. Excellent.